All right, it's time for Yogi and the BeachMan. Hi, I'm Jim the Yogi.
And I'm Rick Beach, the BeachMan.
We're two Michigan transplants now living in Southwest Florida.
In fact, we're cousins born in 1964, just a month apart.
I like to meditate.
And I like to play bass in a band.
I'm into chanting Om.
And I'm into throwing down some classic rock.
But together, we're on a mission
to promote people that are helping other people.
We want to make the world a better place.
One conversation at a time.
So sit back,
turn up the volume,
and get ready to laugh.
Because we like to have fun
while we spread the love.
Interviewing lovely people. Yes, we have fun.
Welcome back to Yogi and the BeachMan. Today we are with Dianné Jean Aldrich. Dianné is the owner of 4 Pillars for Health, medicine keeper of the ancient Mother Moon Lodge, and founder of Rising Couples, and about to publish a new book, The Serenity, Sex, and Soul Lifestyles. Dianné, you're doing a lot. Welcome to the show. We're so excited to have you.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here. It'll be a pleasure to meet your listeners and chat with you guys. And yes, there's a lot going on, so I'm excited about all of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm Jim the Yogi, by the way.
And I'm Rick Beach, the BeachMan.
But please tell us about yourself.
Oh my goodness, where to start? Let's see. Well, right now, I'm deep into launching my next workshop for my Rising Couples program. So calling all couples out there who really comprehend the, let's see, what could I say? How deeply important health in your intimate relationship is. Because
What
we
do you
know,
mean by that?
what do I was going to say, because we know that like if the relationship at home isn't right,
Yeah.
nothing in your life feels quite right. You know, if you're single, we have a different conversation, but if you're in relationship and things aren't good, either in the bedroom or outside of the bedroom, work doesn't feel good. Your health is going to suffer, your emotional life, you know, all the things. So excited to get my next round going.
Yeah. Yeah. You're so right on. I mean, it's so true. I mean, you know, when things aren't right with the relationship, anywhere you go, it just kind of sticks with you, you know, going to work, going to your activities. Yeah, you just don't feel quite right. And when everything's good, you're beaming, right?
Yeah, I was going to say on the other side of the coin, when your relationship is lit up, it's feeding you on so many levels, and you're feeding and supporting your partner on so many levels. And then together, the vision, my Rising Couples program moves from, you know, bringing couples in from wherever they're at. Perhaps they've had an infidelity crisis, something as extreme as that, or they're just not feeling connected. They've had children, they're empty nesters. They haven't really seen and felt each other for many, many years. Plus, we change over the years. But taking a couple from wherever they are all the way into a legacy circle where they're really setting a legacy as a couple, not only for their children, but for the world. And on the other side of that coin, we can present in the world. So what I tell my couples is when you walk out into the world as a couple, people should immediately feel and know what you're about. And you know, just lit up love. The first workshop is called Lit Up Love. We begin there. So yeah, it enhances everything. It's really, really important. And we know sex is amazing for physical health, but emotional and mental health, it's key. And there's just a lot of couples not as intimate as they want to be.
Yeah, sure. What are you doing to rekindle that spark?
Well, I lean deeply into the science of energy. I'm a Qigong practitioner for many, many years. I've been teaching Qigong for many years. So I talk about relationship. Everything is energy, frequency, and vibration, as Nikola Tesla reminds us. And so relationships too are an exchange of energy. And whether we're communicating verbally, emotionally, intellectually, there's a movement of energy. And so if we can dial in the energy, then we can begin to work those patterns of the relationship, because patterns are just frequencies of energy. We can start to shift and rewire patterns in a really beautiful way.
I like that. We've had so many talks lately where energy is just coming through every talk. And
Yes.
it's like, here we are again talking about energy, and I love that because it's so important. Everything's, you know, it's interesting because everything vibrates, everything's energy, but also everything's sound, right?
Well, sound is vibration. Sound is also energy. Light
Yeah.
also. The spectrum of color is all energy. And it's, you know, that topic of energy is really up for so many reasons, but it
Hmm.
is the future. It's the future of medicine. It's the future of wellness and what the ancients knew. It took so many years for our country, you know, in the US. I don't know where people are listening from, but to catch up with acupuncture, Reiki, just the
Hmm.
idea of the martial arts as an energy, you know, based in energy, based in Qigong, moving into Tai Chi, moving into something like a martial art that might become combative. But, you know, initially the training was in the energy first, not in the force. In the United States, we've flipped it. We have it backwards. We're training our kids how to play and spar with force when they don't even know, they don't understand energy, the energy behind that force. And
Hmm.
so I think the US has a little bit of recalibrating to do on that level of how we use and move energy.
Yeah. I think it kind of started, that awakening kind of started with Star Wars and it's slowly been building.
Indeed. Indeed. All those great old classics. You're dating us here, but uh,
Right.
yeah, they started as so many movies and books and works of fiction do. And there's so much now out about right science fiction and future and outer space and all of that is drawing on these ancient teachings that go way back, deep
Hmm.
into Eastern culture, not only in medicine, but in the daily life. These practices were part of the daily life, and so, you know, this is a piece that America, I think, is still catching up with. You know, preventative
Yeah.
medicine really begins with your daily practice, whatever that daily practice might be.
Hmm. I so agree with you. How did you get started in all this?
Well, I'm a professional dancer. I
Okay.
spent many, many years, 14 years in New York City. I toured internationally. I performed at Radio City Music Hall and Lincoln Center and spent years in France and Germany. And so I've always my body is my instrument, it's my tool. I've had to keep it not only healthy but performing for me on the level of a professional athlete. And so that coupled with my mother's ill health, both physical and mental illness in my youth, I was really conscious of my own health, my own energy, my own strength, and I needed to stay in peak physical, emotional, mental fitness as a performer.
Yeah.
And I started teaching really, really young. I started teaching when I was 15, teaching dance. And then in New York City, I started seeing clients one on one, and they just started leaning into more and more life coaching and relationship coaching. And I started drawing all of these correlations between peak physical health and, um, you know, emotional, mental health, and then relationship health. And then when I met the Qigong, when I met the energy and my teacher, Sifu Praga Tablaze, I realized I had been doing Qigong as a dancer all my entire life, and I just didn't know what to call it. Preparing for stage, I would prepare my energy body. And so it's been a long story, really, and we can go into any of that that you'd
Can you
like.
elaborate on Qi Kong? I'm not familiar with the term.
Yes, Qigong Qi means energy or Qi, depending on if you're in China, Japan. Um, Kong, my teacher describes it as the art of energy or the mastery of energy. So Qigong is the practice of learning how to master our energy consciously and with precision. And what I touched on earlier is Qigong, you can think of it as that which precedes Tai Chi. Most people are knowing about Tai Chi in the States. Nearly everybody knows about the martial arts, but martial arts should be preceded by Tai Chi, but Tai Chi should be preceded by Qigong so that we first understand our energy body and then how to begin to work with it and move it out into space beyond ourselves.
Well, there's little to no education of any of this energy stuff. And prior to Jim and I starting this podcast, I would, once again, he's been in this for years. We talked about that earlier, but not me. I'm new to it. So, but now I'm relating things that are happening uh, in just my day-to-day life, like I will pick up on things just by noticing it, or not being oblivious to it, just knowing that of the existence. For example, like uh, when I go to church, I try to get there's usually about an hour of singing and music before the service starts. It's a little different than a normal church, but I try to get there where you can people will come in through the whole singing part of it. But I try to get there about a half hour in, because just the energy and the goodness and the vibrations it really gets you in the right mindset to accept a message of positivity. And and that's something that 6 8 months ago that I wouldn't have even picked up on or made a connection. Maybe I would have still experienced it, but I wasn't knowledgeable of the connection there. Follow me?
I do. I absolutely do. And as a teacher, that training aspect is what I get really excited about. And our children, ideally we start away. So you're talking about consciousness, becoming conscious that this music and the sound vibration is setting a tone for you and opening your receptivity to that which is about to be given to you, which is the message in church for the day. And um, consciousness also is energy. It's based in energy. And so as we begin to become more conscious, we're recognizing that we're already working with our energy. We're already expanding or elevating our energy. And if our children understood that at a very young age, their understanding in Phi-Ed, of course, their physical body. There's now some mindfulness. There's talk about character in the schools, right? So our emotional and our mental bodies being educated, but the energy body is not quite yet being educated. There's some yoga coming into the schools. Maybe they talk about prana, which is also energy. Um, and the mindfulness, and that's becoming more and more well known. It's becoming quite a uh, just more of a label, more of a title. But the deepest understanding of mindfulness is consciousness and being aware of your surroundings. And when we start to become aware of our surroundings, already we're working with our energy body.
Hmm. So I've taken Tai Chi classes. I've done Tai Chi. How does Qigong differ?
Qigong slows the Tai Chi down and simplifies it even further. So for most
Okay.
people, Tai Chi would feel more simplified, slower than martial arts, for instance.
Hmm.
Qigong, we're really focusing primarily on just the energy and allowing the energy to move the physical body. So the idea of effortless effort,
Hmm.
also called Wu Wei, the muscles are doing their job, but in a completely relaxed way. And that's true in Tai Chi. However, we first have to meet our energy body. We have to feel it. We have to understand what it is. And Qigong takes the time that's necessary to unpack that really. How do we feel it? Some people see energy. Some people feel
Hmm.
energy. Um, and I begin, with my students, begin what you're talking, Rick, about consciousness, just becoming aware. So we begin on the level of awareness, and we might use our breath to take that journey, or we might use visualization to take that journey, or we might use sound to take that journey. But to become aware that energy is present within and all around us, but also in the others who might be in the room. When I'm working my Qigong with couples, my energy is going to affect my lover's energy, and their energy is going to affect mine. And that is going to determine how we interact in that moment and the memory we make, or the lovemaking we have, or the communication we're able or not able to have. And when each of us become really responsible for how we're carrying and wielding our own energy, and we come in with that level of responsibility, there's a deeper maturity that's going to happen in relationship. And that might be parent-child, that might be work associates, that might be your spouse or partner. But when we each become responsible for our own energy, then the world just becomes a different place that we're interacting with.
Absolutely. Do you get couples that come in and have quote unquote bad energy that you have to work with?
Oh, of course, absolutely. And it's that bad energy that's creating a quote unquote bad relationship. They're coming,
Yeah.
they're suffering, they're struggling, they may be on the brink of separation or divorce.
Mm-hmm.
And often, not always, but often, there's very little recognition that they need to take full responsibility for their energy, which creates their words, creates their thoughts, creates patterns of blame, creates resentment, creates, all that unfolds, both positive and negative, over the course of a relationship. We're bringing that, we're instigating, and when both partners take a moment and step away from the he said, she said, he did, she did, or he didn't do, or she didn't do, and
Mm-hmm.
start to look at, am I just even showing up at least neutral, if not in my full on love and adoration for my beloved, whom I'm committed to, and I share my life and my body and my emotions and my dreams with, how am I showing up? And that begins to change things immediately.
Yeah. I mean, that's some tough work you're doing because I don't know. It seems like I've been around some people with some really tough energy. They're like tough nuts to crack, and it's,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
imagine the work you're doing, you're finding the same thing. And it seems like more men to me. I don't know, but there's also women I've seen with bad energy, and getting through to that place where you're like having them create the self-awareness and the presence to feel the energy that they're creating. I imagine some people just don't get it, don't understand, but if they have a breakthrough,
Well, if they're coming to
how
see
awesome.
someone with your resume, they already have they must have some kind of knowledge of how energy interacts in their life, and they want to take that to the next step or use that, have you help them use that to repair their relationship instead of going to a normal licensed clinical therapist, marriage counselor, something like that, and a more secular type of situation, that type of counselor. So you probably have somewhat of an advantage because they must be open to your line of thinking before they come see you, or they would have never found you. Is that correct?
Some do and some don't. Often what happens is one of the partners, are open to it, or heard, or maybe have maybe they're just going to a yoga class,
Hmm.
and they've heard about me and this work, but their partner has no background and often has no interest and come in absolutely skeptical. I have a great story in my introductory workshop. I have everyone write on an anonymous card. What is something you really want me to know about you that I don't already know? And a lot of them I've never met. But don't put your name on it. Just I want to be able to respond to, you know, and and I got a 3x5 card. I'm skeptical. That was the whole card. That was the whole message that it turned out to be the husband he wanted me to know. So it was maybe 6 months, a year later, and they had moved from my 10-week workshop into my annual program called Rise in Love. And he came to me and said, I just want you to know that I was the one that wrote that card. And I want to thank you because you just let me be skeptical. And you allowed me to explore and experience. And the beautiful thing about energy work and Qigong in particular, or at least in the way that I present it, um, I can take someone who's skeptical or knows nothing from 0 to 60 really fast because the energy body already exists, and all I need to do is lead them into becoming aware of it and feeling it. And it takes literally 5 minutes in the first class. And at the end of that first 5 minute, I wouldn't even call it a practice yet, but experience or exploration, the energy in the whole room is different. The energy in the whole room has changed. And another great example, and I'm talking a lot, but I just want to touch on it, Rick, because it's so important. I had a couple and they lived in separate houses, married for decades and decades. The kids were grown. They were really, their intention was really to stay together, but wow, there was so much distance on so many levels. They're still with me. They're still 3 years later. They're working and growing, but they're on the brink of divorce. And of the 10-week workshop, I think it was like the third or fourth class only. Now, this is a couple who've lived separately for probably 15 years at that point.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I went around and just in one word, I asked, share what you're experiencing for your partner right now, for your beloved. And he said, and this is a gentleman absolutely reserved, coming and kicking and screaming, dragging his feet. He said, adoration. And then he went on to tell me later, for the first time in years, probably more, I don't know, maybe 2 decades, he felt adoration. He was adoring his wife. That's how fast it can happen.
That's beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Really.
Well, like you said, it's just being aware of that, because it does take a while. Well, it took a while for me to get it. Maybe if I was in your class, it wasn't, but I'm sitting here with him, you know. So, but
Come on,
really,
he's a yogi. He knows something about energy, really.
that's true. But through our, like I said, we grew up, as cousins. So we had for the 20 years or so till 18 or 19 when we both went in the service. Then we split up, and then here we are. Just both of us will be 61 in the next couple of months. We're a month apart in age. When we first started this, and the podcast has evolved into what it is today. But I was skeptical.
Mhm.
I mean, it really was, but I wasn't putting it into practice. But then I think it was, what was the guy's name?
Cal.
Cal.
Mhm.
He was the first one kind of got to me. And because he said, my daughter had listened to the podcast. She goes, Dad, you don't ever talk about how to get there. How do you,
Mm.
I listen to the podcast, you guys talk about it, but none of your guests say, okay, this is how to do it. So I asked Cal, I said, hey, Cal, let's do a practice here. Let's go. And then, he said, close your eyes. It was summer. I was wearing shorts, and a t-shirt, and, feel the ceiling fan blowing on your hair on your legs, and just taking it all in around you. And at that point, that was the crossover for me, where I kind of said, okay, maybe I get this. But since then, and this is probably back in June, I've really been making conscious efforts to explore all these things. And it's cool learning about it. So for somebody who wanted to get like Energy 101 that might be listening to us, how would you say get started if you'd never heard of Qigong before, or Tai Chi or any of this stuff? I've heard of Tai Chi, but it's not something I ever would think about pursuing. Perhaps I should. I'm not closed off to it, but how would you say, hey, I really want to kind of tap into this part of my life? What's the first steps to getting there or making yourself aware of this stuff?
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. One of the things you're talking about is moving from theory and the knowledge of something into the practice, the lived experience of something. And we can't fully comprehend something until we've had direct experience. So, the first thing I would say to your listeners is seek out an experience. And energy work is spreading across the world, the United States. You can seek out a Reiki practitioner. You can go to an acupuncturist, even through health insurance. And on a lot of plans now, you can see an acupuncturist. Just have an experience of what that is. Find a Qigong practitioner in your area. Call me. I work with people over Zoom as well as in my sacred space here in Wisconsin. But seek somebody who can lead you, guide you in and through a lived experience of becoming aware of your energy body and making even some subtle shift or change or transformation in that energetic vibration so that you feel the difference before and after. When I work with all my students, we check in physically, mentally, emotionally, and energetically before the practice begins. And then we check in on those same levels again at the end, and they become able to identify what's different. If we can't identify what's different, we're going to think it doesn't work or it's not real. So that level of awareness, what I would recommend to your listeners is before you begin yoga, you go for a run, you make love, you read a great book on self-development, any of these things, ask yourself, how am I feeling? What am I experiencing physically, mentally, emotionally, and energetically? Then do your thing, go ski, whatever it is, have a walk in the woods. And then at the end, now what am I experiencing physically, mentally, emotionally, and energetically? And you'll start to get feedback about what in this life experience feels good to you, what repairs and restores you, what heals you, what opens your mind, what opens your heart to higher and higher levels of unconditional love. And then you can begin to, I'm also a businesswoman, so, strategy and measurement and planning, then you've got some data and you can start to say, oh, when I'm feeling like this, I know it's time to go take a walk in the woods. Or when I'm full of anxiety and fear, that's when I need to get into water. Or when I'm feeling resentful toward my beloved, toward my partner, that's when I know I need to take a few deep breaths and just have a really open and honest conversation and just let them know what I'm thinking and feeling. Until we start to recognize how all of this is working on us, we won't really be able to use them as exceptional tools. And all of these things, yoga, qigong, meditation, they're just tools to amplify our potential of wonderful, ecstatic life living.
Perfect and great advice. Yeah, I like how you're calling them tools because it's, creating that self-awareness. When you have that self-awareness, then you can, I mean, those tools are getting you to the self-awareness. And then when you recognize what's happening in yourself, then you say, oh, okay, yeah, I need to make this change. I need to change my own energy, however that's happening. Like you said, getting into water or going skiing, making love, whatever, raise that vibration, change that energy.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
if we don't know the energy's down, we don't know the energy's quote unquote bad, then yeah, we don't have that awareness to even think to make those changes.
Yeah. And so often folks, the level that they are aware on, and I'm
Mhm.
speaking generally, this may not be true for a lot of your listeners, but generally the recognition is tied to something external and it becomes blame. I'm
Mhm.
I'm not feeling good today because work is so stressful, or I'm angry because my partner didn't show up for dinner on time last night, or I'm depressed because of the political landscape, or the war on the other side of the planet, or, and when we can start to identify that, yes, all of those factors are also energy, so they're playing on our own energy, absolutely. But as soon as we fully comprehend that all I need to do is change my own energy, and then that energy that's coming at me, somebody's angry at me, someone's upset at me, I'm going to interact with that energy really differently, and it's not going to have the power that it did.
Yeah, totally makes sense. Yeah, even watching some TV shows or the news or whatever, and that energy that's bombarding you through the media really has an effect.
Yeah. Yes. We need to get quiet. I talk to my students often, look at what you're consuming, not only food wise, but what is the sound consumption? What are you
Hmm.
hearing throughout the course of your day? What are you feeling? What's in your environment? What are your tactile sensations through the course of the day? What kind of emotions are you ingesting from those closest to you in your home, in your neighborhood, at your workplace? All what we consume is feeding us and creating either a toxic internal landscape or a vitalized internal landscape. And we get to choose, to a large degree, what we consume. And
Hmm.
if we're consuming a lot of news, we should look at a media diet, perhaps. And you know, um,
Even types of music. There's a lot of music up there that's going to build up your energy, keep you, in a better space, and a lot of music that's going to take down your energy.
When we were
Oh,
putting on the
oh
hurricane,
yeah.
that reminded me. we're we had those couple back-to-back hurricanes back in August, and
Yeah.
Just bought this house that we're in, and we had to put up he went and bought hurricane shutters and said, "Hey Rick, come on over, help us out. Will you help me put up the shutters?" It was a lot of work, and we got it
Yeah.
done. But I'm like 2.5, 3 hours into this morning, and he's playing Nirvana, and it's just over and over, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I mean, I like Nirvana, but I can only take it in because it's such a downer. It's minor chords, and and I'm like, Jim, I gotta get off of this Nirvana kick, man. Put on some Sammy Hagar or something upbeat and fast.
Yeah.
Let's get going here. But
Yeah.
it really does have an impact on, well, like I said
Mhm.
about the church thing.
Yeah.
Go in there, feel that upbeat energy in the music, and everybody feeling right and good and just general goodness.
Hmm.
Uh, it does have and people have that. But Jim's so right about the news.
Yeah.
I can only take 6, 7 minutes, and then I really have to turn it off. I've noticed that it really affects me and gives me a downer.
Hmm.
If I, so I
Yeah.
get my news from alternate media that I believe, but just watching the doom and gloom of Fox News or MSNBC or CNN, it's just all the same.
Yeah. Even comedians now. I mean, I feel like they're just shouting at me. It's like it's
Mm,
hard for me to even listen to comedians.
Oh, I
yeah.
don't
They,
know.
they don't talk with a normal. Most of them don't talk with a normal voice. They're like shouting at you. It's like I don't want
Yeah.
you to shout at me.
Well, yeah, to each his own.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
sound healing, sound science, it's ancient.
Hmm.
We come from the womb, hearing our mother's heartbeat. The
Hmm.
sound, that sound is a vibration on the fetus, on the embryo, on the fetus. And and we know in our indigenous cultures, our ancient cultures, the drum, that heartbeat, that sound, that vibration, and then it moved into the wind instruments, the flutes, and all of these healing vibrations, they repair, they restore. And so we can use sound to damage. And we know in warfare, there's been soundscape that has been used to damage as part of warfare. So,
Hmm.
again, there's both sides of that coin. And when we, yeah, just a little bit of a Google search on sound healing or sound silence. There's a lot. You can YouTube hertz 432
Hmm.
432 hertz. There's 900. There are all these levels of hertz that work on different energy meridians. All of that complication, we can just simply say, get really quiet and invite loving, beautiful, sacred sounds that make you feel good. Whatever those are, they're going to be different for each person. I love to sit next to the water and listen to the water.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I
well,
but I facilitate the Moon Lodge, and we begin like you, Rick, your church service, we begin every lodge with music, with sound, with the drum and the flute and the songs. Each of us sing our honor songs, and we sing together, and we recognize one another in the circle by our song. We don't introduce ourselves by name, we introduce ourselves through our song. And it's ancient. It's who we are as a human species. We come from that.
well, and you can certainly change. If I want to change if I'm having a bad day or a bad experience or something goes wrong at work or in my life or whatever, and I'm feeling kind of down, I mean, literally, I can just turn on some music, some upbeat stuff, some positivity, and
Hmm.
within, I mean, and I'm sure this works for everybody. It's exactly what you're talking about. It can literally change your whole headspace in 30 seconds
Mhm.
if you let it,
Yes.
if you're open to it.
Yeah.
So it's like I said, I was kind of ignorant of how all these different energies impact me on a day to day basis or in my relationships.
Mm.
But it's good now that I've taken this journey and I'm learning about this stuff because it's really helpful. But I don't think a lot of people are really aware. Like you said at the very beginning, we don't teach this stuff in school.
Hmm.
Uh, Jim's a nurse. I probably didn't teach it in nursing school. My daughter's a nurse getting her master's. I talked to her about this stuff too. And she goes, no, we never talk about this stuff. But it's not part of the normal health and wellness routine that we get from the established medical community.
Yeah. Yeah. It's truly not. It is coming, however. I taught at our local hospital at the American Center for many, many years. They opened a new wellness center, dedicated more to health and wellness than to medical intervention, but it was right in the hospital. And the supervisor of the center, as they were building it, called me in and asked me to teach, but also to help her create a sacred space, quote unquote. So they had a room, a chapel they called it the meditation room rather than a chapel, which has been more traditional in a hospital setting. This space was going to be the yoga studio, the TRX studio, the strength training studio, all of these things. But she recognized the need for a certain vibration to be set in the space so that even as people entered the space, they immediately began to shift and transform their energy just simply by walking into the space. And we know that temples and synagogues and sweat lodges and all the holy places that people pilgrimage around the world were drawn there to the pyramids, to Machu Picchu, because the vibration is different. And Rick, I just wanted to illuminate what you said about receptivity. All of this only works if we're receptive, fully receptive. And even becoming receptive is a practice. Like that in itself is something that unfolds over time. And in couples, couples come in and they want a great relationship. And I have a teaching that I talk about, but are you willing to do what it takes to achieve that? Great. You can want it all day long, but is there a willingness? And we begin with receptivity. Are you willing to fully receive your partner, love, communication, changing your mind, shifting energetic patterns? Are you willing to do that work, which I call play? I love it. I have a blast, doing the work. But that receptivity definitely begins in awareness, because we need to know whether we're being receptive or not. But really that next point after awareness isn't doing, it's receiving.
So you have the husband who gets dragged in kicking and screaming by his wife who just found this, all of a sudden, this crazy lady on the internet that's going to fix our energy. So how do you get that guy to come around? I mean, what would be, I'm sitting in your office with my significant other, or sitting in a Zoom meeting, and I'm skeptical like that other guy. I mean, how do you break through to that person? Or you just say, hey, come on.
Yeah. No, I don't say just, hey, come on, because that never works. First
Well,
of all,
right.
that's never worked. Doesn't work for kids. I'm a mom.
Right.
Kids, that doesn't work for anybody. The beautiful thing, the thing that I have in my favor is that it's all based in science. And so I can speak the science, and I don't know all the science. I'm not a scientist, but I'm 4 pillars. So my business is called 4 Pillars for Health. The 4 pillars are science, mystery, art, and philosophy. And the masters talk about when those 4 pillars are really fused and the teachings are flowing through all 4 pillars and the practices are being received through all 4, that's when we'll have our next sort of quantum leap as a species in consciousness and maturity. So we don't want to drop the science out, and the mind who needs some factual basis to ground this woo-woo spiritual, you said, crazy, weird lady, speak. I don't speak like that because there's no need to speak like that. Science, quantum physics is proving what the ancient mystics have always known. And because of that, it's very easy for me to weave a language that lands on whomever is sitting in front of me. And so I just speak to the men, and sometimes it's the women that come in skeptical. It's not always the men, but I just speak to them where they're at, and we have a real conversation. And it really comes down to, Are you happy? Are you fulfilled in your relationship? Do you want it to can you continue the way that it is? Or do you want it to be better? Do you want it to feel better? Do you want your communication to be stronger? Are you communicating effectively? With my rise in my legacy circle, we were talking about the difference between effective communication and efficient communication. We need effective to be efficient, but let's talk about efficient and get through those conversations that are really hard so we can get back to communicating on the levels that are fun, having playful adventures together and speaking compliments to one another. It amazes me when I work with any of these couples how very little they're complimenting each other on a daily basis. It's a big energy. I can just ask him, like, when's the last time you've heard a compliment from her? Did she say thank you for, I'll just be very traditional for a moment. He's working, she's at home. Let's just be very gender, traditional and stereotypical just for a moment. Did she thank you for working hard all day and the stress that comes with that and the sacrifice and the dedication and the commitment? And you may not have felt great when you woke up this morning, but you went to work anyway. You handled all that needed to be handled. You came home and you're able to provide for her and for your family. Did she thank you when you walked through the door with a smile, a hug, a kiss, you know, we can go on, we can get,
Mhm.
or not. Let's just start there. What is the energy through communication that's complementary, positive, uplifting, recognizing the sacrifice that men are making for their women, their children, their friends, their communities, their extended families, for this world.
I love that. I love that you're speaking in a way that people can understand because I've in the yoga circles, a lot of people get introduced to Sanskrit and Sanskrit terms and Sanskrit names of the postures, and then you get into Ayurveda and they've got all these terms. And then if you talk to somebody that doesn't know anything about it, they're lost. And to me, it's like, why you're bringing new people into a yoga class and you're speaking Sanskrit, which nobody on the planet speaks Sanskrit. So why are you using a dead language? Yeah. And
Right.
then you got all these Ayurveda terms that nobody understands. It's to me, it's not helpful. So I appreciate what you're doing with that. Speak to the
Thank
people where they're at, and they'll understand you. Yeah.
That was so beautifully exemplified. He just gave me a compliment. I just spoke about complimenting one another. That was beautiful. Thank you.
Just slip that in.
I've been a life coach for 30 years. And one thing you learn really fast is you just have to be real with people. I can't help people have a breakthrough
Hmm.
if if I can't understand them and they can't understand me. But I also can't help them have a breakthrough if I don't lay it out like for real. Like this is what's really going on. Let's get to it. And
Yeah.
you can't do that when you use fluffy language and
Right.
esoteric terms. For the intellectual mind or the spiritual soul who craves that, which I have that, I go to my teachers in my private personal time. I'm deeply immersed in that language and the ancient theory, and I love it. Most
Hmm.
people, like you said, Jim, they could care less. They
Right.
just want to feel better.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Feel better, have a better life, manage their situations better,
Yeah,
lower the anger, lower the fighting. Absolutely.
yeah. And it
Well,
happens so fast. It can happen so
Hmm.
fast.
Yeah.
it's like sometimes I'll be, with my partner, my girlfriend Carrie, we'll be driving around, and sometimes I just notice, the first. It's always I try to keep the energy always happy and upbeat in the morning, and I get up earlier than her and read and unwind and do my thing. But then, I mean, it always happens. I know it happens with every couple, where then you get in the car and then might be like a snide remark, not hurtful, just a little smart alecky thing, and then then you got to get back and the next thing you know, you spend 45 minutes and it's well, what do you think about that? Or you know what I mean? Just not being positive, just a little
Hmm.
bit of hurtfulness, just to maybe make me feel better, and then finally I'll just say, "Hey, come on, we got to
Mm,
get out of this. Let's no more negative. I don't want to go here anymore. I feel it. You don't even notice it. It's kind of almost a habit. But
yeah.
And then you just have to say, I'll say, Carrie, come on. No more smart alecky things. I realize I'm not driving the way you want me to, or didn't park there, or whatever. I mean, those kind of insignificant nothings that kind of, I think there's outside influences on us all, positive and negative. And if you allow yourself to go down that negative side, not noticing you're being influenced by those negative energies around us. So now that I've been open to the fact of realizing that they're even there, I've been really taking advantage of not letting myself get sucked down that whirlpool.
Yeah. 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 I have two things I want to share. Science, energy begets energy. Energy is always in motion. A relationship is either evolving and expanding or growing. You could use that word. Energy is amplifying, magnifying, or it's dissolving, it's disintegrating, it's going down that negative rabbit hole that you're talking about. And people don't realize that we don't ever plateau, or at least not for very long. And as you know, in the fitness industry, you work out, and then you're always going to hit a plateau. But if you don't figure out how to take that next step, then the muscle you've gained is going to start to disintegrate. Same is true in relationship, and people don't recognize. My program is called Rise in Love because I talk about the difference between falling in love and rising in love. Like, why would you want to fall? It's really fun, but don't fall for long, and definitely don't fall so long that you're going to crash and burn at some point. How do we rise in love? So one great, just I don't even want to call it a practice, but a lifestyle habit. Let's just call it a great habit. When you get into the car as a couple, or just before you get into the car, just take one moment, look at each other, and decide, how do we want this time together to be? Like this 15-minute drive to the grocery store, or this hour drive to the park that we're going to hike in. Just take one moment, look at each other, and just have a really quick set an intention. Let's laugh. Like, let's have fun. Let's be really warm and cuddly. It could be anything. I'm just making stuff up off the top. But if we begin to stop and prepare the moment that is ahead of us, which Qigong does that, it teaches us how to stop, take a moment, become aware, do a few things, a few forms, a few breath cycles, a few visualizations, so that we can prepare our energy for the day, or for our dream time or sleep time at night, or for stepping onto stage, as a performer. I would prepare my energy before I stepped in front of an audience. What if we prepared our energy for our beloved before lovemaking? What if we prepared as a couple, our energy as a couple, before we went out to a dinner party? What if we maintenance our car, we fill our gas tank, we do all of these things for that which we rely on to get us to where we need to go? I would say maintenance and prepare the coupleship for where you want it to go. And then those little tricky, snide comments, they don't feel good even as they're coming up to say them. Immediately you recognize that feels off.
Sometimes,
So
that
true.
instantly it leaves your lip, or at least me. Instant they leave my lips. I'm like, Rick, why? Really, come on. There's no need for that. And I'm not saying real hurtful things, just things that don't need to be said.
Apologize immediately, Rick. Can I give you a little coaching?
Sure.
Are you open?
I'm always open.
Okay, thank you. If it happens, and hey, none of us are perfect. Things come, we're distracted for moments, we're hurt internally. All this comes from something internal that's hurt or broken, ill repaired, or, we've just been trained, right? How many times have you seen couples talk about each other when the person is standing right there in a negative way, in jest? Never, ever do that to your beloved, ever, by the way, all your listeners. But one thing I do say, if it does slip, as you become conscious of it, own it immediately. Again, it's that self-responsibility thing. Look at her and say, that was effed up. I'm sorry I said that. I don't want to ever say anything like that to you. I love you. You're beautiful. Forgive me, please. Would you forgive me? Let her respond with a yes, and immediately you've cleared the energy. As
It's
soon as
done.
you ask and she responds with a yes, you can, it no longer now becomes part of the baggage that you're carrying, even as little as that comment might have been, because to your point earlier, they do build and then they magnify, and then all of a sudden you have a big problem based on a lot of little problems, little comments, little thoughts, even. And you don't know how to unpack all that. It's been so many years, so many comments.
Absolutely. I don't know if this was your experience of, we both had the same grandparents. We spent quite a bit of time with them. They were constantly nitpicking back and forth, always constant. It was
Well,
never just
it,
peace and love. It was always bip, 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 bip.
it was always,
Constant.
but it was grandpa usually would be the one coming back with humor.
Uh-huh.
Grandma would come back with anger.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
no, I would, it's,
But it was,
but even before I had been thinking that
yeah.
through this conversation
Okay.
about grandma and grandpa.
Yeah.
Diamond in Virginia, God bless them both.
Yeah.
We're doing great names. Wow.
Hmm.
It's so common. It's more common than people want to really claim and admit. We've all seen it. And part of what I get so passionate about, again, being a teacher, being someone who trains and coaches and guides, couples don't have training. We have a lot of bad examples. That's our training. We've
Yeah.
grown up in dysfunctional homes, either our parents or our grandparents or our aunts and uncles, family reunions. There's just all of this energetic, emotional chaos. And we hear it. Children are so, they're little sponges on all levels, and their energy is affected so purely and so readily. Every comment,
Mm.
every glance, every exchange, they're absorbing into their own energy body, and they're becoming more scared or more shy, or on a positive level, more confident, more vibrant. Children are easily hurt, but they're also easily lit up. They love to play. They
Hmm.
love to laugh. They love to create. But when there's negative impact in their environment, that creativity gets shut down, and we become adults who are no longer creating. We're not creating good relationships. We're not creating art. We're not creating a vision, a dream, a passion for our future. And pretty soon we're in the grind, and the grind makes us angry, and the
Yeah,
grind makes
absolutely.
us resentful.
I don't have,
Hmm.
neither one of us have any kids at home now, but I see that my dog will reflect my how I'm feeling. I never really look at it as I looked at it till just now when you said that about the little kids. My dog can tell if Carrie comes home and Rocky's just doing his and he's bummed out. She'll know that something's up with me by how
Mm.
he is
Yeah,
responding to me.
yeah, yeah. All the things in the world that are dependent on us will reflect to the world what we bring, what we feed them. Our animals, our children, our plants, our homes, our yard. You ever walked into somebody's home and you're like, oh, I love coming over here for dinner? Or you walk into somebody's home and you're like, oh my God, when can we leave? And it's just the environment of the home, but it's reflecting the humans that are inside that home. We bring life. Feng shui is an energy practice. Feng shui is the art of interior design from a place of amplifying energy and or clearing, cleansing energy, placing things in a way that brings success or prosperity or love into the home. So we don't even need to be aware that this ancient practice exists to be aware that people's homes feel really good or they don't feel so good. And
So true.
yeah,
Well,
everything is a reflection of our energy that we touch in the world,
Hmm.
including our country, including the earth and the world itself.
Yeah. Can you share with us a little bit about your new book that's coming out?
Yes, the title you gave it earlier is just a working title. I don't know if that'll be
Oh,
the
okay.
title. It's a fun title. Um, the serenity, sex, and power. They're three steps. So my longtime 25-year teacher, he's of Inca lineage. He's Quechua Indian. I went on Vision Quest to Machu Picchu decades ago now, and became a really pivotal spiritual guide and mentor, and eventually a papa, a spiritual papa, for me in my life. But the ancient esoteric science, I'm getting a little esoteric to answer your question about my book. All sacred, spiritual, esoteric tradition is based on the same, the synthesis, the same basic information. Christianity, Judaism, Hinduism, all of it. And all of the prophets or messiahs or messengers have talked about the same 3 steps towards self-realization. The first step is really purifying your own vehicle. So in Christianity, it's called the 7 deadly sins: pride, lust, anger, greed, gluttony, laziness or sloth, envy. So cleansing or purifying those levels of the personality so that we can liberate, talking about freedom or enlightenment or liberation, love, peace, trust, faith, et cetera, health, good health, vibrant health on all levels. First step, level of self-responsibility I was talking about earlier, how we take responsibility for the self. The second step has to do with our connection with other. So that might be our intimate partner, that might be our children, that might be a parent. But in relationship to partnership, intimate partnership, it's why marriage was always a sacrament and a sacred vow, because there's a recognition that when 2 come together to become one and to create life, we are a conduit through which God is creating, is working, and it's sacred. And our sexuality, our sacred, our union is sacred, because it creates life. And then we're responsible for that life. So the third step is service. And that's where we find our soul's purpose. And I talk about the power presence protocol, how to become really aware of our soul's purpose and empower that so that we're making a difference in our world. And that might just be how we raise our children, because of all that we just spoke about. How we affect them is the future of this planet. But it could be what we create. It could be our work, whatever our legacy in the world. It might be, working with the homeless at the local shelter. But all traditions, all religious traditions, in one way or another, touch on these 3 steps in awakening and becoming a self-realized individual in the world. And so my book takes that ancient esoteric wisdom and brings it into contemporary language in a way that we can use it, apply it, and really rise to our ultimate happiness, joy, potential, legacy, love. There's no reason why any of us need to be suffering on any level, particularly if we have a food on our table, a roof over our head. If our basic needs are taken care of, we are so blessed on this planet where there's true suffering and lack and need. So that's the essence of my book. Longer explanation.
Sounds like a great book. What you said remind me of a guy I had in my teacher training program, yoga teacher training program, and we were reading some spiritual stuff and getting through these books, and he's like, "There's nothing new here." I'm like, you're right. These books are, were written thousands of years ago. This isn't new information. This isn't a new age stuff. It's all old stuff, but it's how you apply it. You can hear it over and over again and go, "Oh, that's not new. That's not new." Okay, what are you using it? Are you applying it? You're making it part of your life? Are you using the practices? Because that's what makes the difference. You can't just read it and know it.
Well, and like you just said about things that are good in your life, you have a roof over your health. I mean, I literally I try really hard to pray every day. And the first thing I do is just thank God for my health, my family, the roof over my head, the food in the fridge, and my daughter, and my family, stuff like that. And I find I don't really ask for a lot. I just am grateful for a lot. And I think the more grateful you are, just to send it out to the universe.
Mhm.
It's just gonna be rebound you back with good energy that we're talking about.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that was going on till just now. It's like a big light bulb, but it's weird how all this stuff connects.
Yeah.
We were talking earlier about, hey, you asked what kind of guests you have on. You know, we have nutritionists and hypnotists and ET experiencers. I mean, we really talk to a wide range of people, but it really has a common theme.
Yeah.
It's all positivity, good health, good mental health, spiritual health, physical health, no matter how you get there. And maybe your thing doesn't work for this person, but that thing will.
Mm-hmm.
And I've really kind of finding my niche on what's working for me that I really, and I didn't even know I was messed up. I
Mm-hmm.
just thought that's how it was. A month or so, I
Yeah.
told Jim we didn't have a guest and we needed a podcast. And he goes, we're going to do, and I come over and goes, oh, she canceled. And we were stressing out. I'm like, all right, I was busy that day. I'm like, I got to go to work. And, I don't want to be over here with you. I want to go do my own thing. I just wasn't into it. And I said, well, no, we're doing a breathing podcast. I'm like, okay. Well, fast forward. Now we're about 6 weeks past that. Every single day, I'm using those exercises from that podcast that I really wasn't open to. I mean, because it's not like he's you. I don't come to Jim as an expert. He's my cousin. I know. What does he know? But
I can't tell him anything.
well, you're growing on me. But really, I wouldn't say I felt not. I'm trying to think of the right word. It's not resentful, but it's more like you know what I mean? I got this. I don't need you.
Oh yeah. Okay.
I
Mm-hmm.
got this.
Yeah.
But I don't. I need everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We learn from each other.
Yeah.
I need everybody. That's why this podcast. I've said this to Jim before. I don't want to hear it again.
I just got chills.
But this podcast has really helped me move up, and it's allowing me to expand that out to others. And that's and meeting people like you and hearing these stories and making these connections is really kind of well, it's cool.
Mhm.
I dig it.
Yay.
Yay.
Well, your prayers are being answered. You're praying every morning and God is just showing up in mighty, miraculous ways for you. And it's just humility. Humility is not spoken about in the beautiful context and the beautiful container in which I think it really exists. And it's that ability to be in the yoga tradition, it's called the beginner's mind, to be in that place where, of course, I need everyone. We're totally interdependent, not separate from one. In the indigenous tradition, in the Mullah tradition, in the circle, we sit in a circle because it signifies that there's an equality. We all come with our gift, our talent, our voice, our medicine. And everyone else in that circle also has medicine, also has a voice, also has power. And when we sit in a circle rather than in a leadership follower role, set up, then that flow of energy, we all are receiving from each other, and together as a collective, we're rising, we're expanding, we're awakening, we're strengthening. And in Western culture, once once the European influence came onto the native First Nations land, that circle turned into a square. And we need to keep returning back to the circle, back to the circle, back to circle, so that the flow of energy. My yurt, my brick and mortar space is a yurt. It's round. I was on a podcast
Oh,
the
that's
other day and
cool.
they asked, why a yurt? And I said, well, really, because I sat in sweat lodges for so long. And I felt the energy that moves when you're in a circular space. And I didn't want my work to be in a square or a rectangle. I needed that healing to be flowing in that beautiful way. The teepees, the yurts, the geodesic domes, the sweat lodges, the igloos, they're built in a circle for a reason. So that's a shift. We need to go back to the ancient teachings, and Jim, like you said earlier, bring them into contemporary language and practices so that they're practical. We
Mhm.
need practical in beautiful fusion with the divine. And then we've got this life in form that's really, it's just beautiful. It's sacred.
And then we'll have that quantum leap that you mentioned, or what I like to say is like a big paradigm shift where people
Yes.
recognize the oneness in the world and start to make better decisions on all levels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go off onto this tangent because we're a little long already, but what you said earlier about quantum computing having the basics of having a scientific basis in this. What's going on with quantum computing right now is really amazing on showing how it's almost proving the existence of other dimensions.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's always been, we've always thought or theorized, but it's almost to the point where quantum computing is proving the existence of it.
Yeah.
Which is
Yeah,
really
it's
exciting.
happening. It's super exciting. A lot of people don't know. Do you know about the ice cube experiment down on the South Pole in Antarctica?
I'm not, no.
I have a good friend. He's a journalist, and he's going down there to do a documentary. It's totally a tangent, and we totally don't have time for it. But people can look this up, Google it, and see, and just learn. I'm not even going to give it away. They have, oh, what is the word? They have experienced, like, tangibly, and are scientifically researching an energetic form that is coming from the other side of the void of the Big Bang. It's coming through, and they've collected literally 13 of these specimens. They're for some reason attracted to the South Pole. As they move through, they created, it's called an ice cube, that they're studying, they're researching, and these energetic entity beings are there, and then they're just not there.
Interesting.
And they're jumping in and out. I don't personally have the language, I'm not a scientist, but in and out of dimension or time travel, or I don't have the language yet, and I need to do more research. But I was just having this conversation with him, and he was telling me all about it, and it was totally fascinating. And
I'll certainly check that out.
yeah,
I hear there's a lot going on down there, but that's a real deep rabbit hole.
No, it is. It almost.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna definitely check that out because it's pretty interesting.
yeah. It's all there now, for the skeptic. The skeptic isn't going to be skeptical for long, because it's, it's just a matter of time before we'll all be proven under our very recent, by the way, scientific model. Humans haven't explored the world through discovery based on this scientific model for very long. And I think that's always an important thing. Same with Western medicine. These medicines that people are relying on that are creating so many side effects and other complications, they have not been around very long. And we don't know what the combination of these cocktails, you're prescribed 5 different things, you're taking them all at the same time. There's no real scientific data on how that is affecting and influencing the body or the mind or the hormones.
Don't get us going, Diana.
Choir here. That's a whole nother hour. I could rant.
Yeah.
For 45 minutes
sure.
on the premise you just talked about.
Well, you might have to have me back then, and we can rant.
We would love to.
Look on the bright side. They're taking red dye poison out of our stuff in the
Yeah.
next 2 years. It's nice of them.
Right.
So
Thanks for taking the poison out of our foods.
yeah, really. I don't need any other stuff.
Yeah. So if one of our listeners is interested in getting a hold of you, joining one of your programs, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, the easiest way, whether you're in a coupleship or not, just the easiest way is risingcouples.com. RISING couples.com. There's my email is there. You can any of your listeners, just shoot me an email about any of the things that we talked about today. If you're in coupleship and you want to experience something you never have before, maybe you haven't in a long time, or you're a new couple and you want to ensure a sustainable, joyful relationship, there's a little mini workshop called Lit Up Love, and it's just $10 just to kind of meet me in that space. And it's 90 minutes. You can do it in a day. You could spread it out over 3 days if you want. But Lit Up Love, try that workshop, or just email me and I'll answer any of your questions, and would love to meet your listeners.
I really enjoy your names of these programs, because you've got like the rising couples, you've got lit up love. I mean, it's very uplifting things.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you. I hope that they're descriptive of what, you know, my couples actually get from the workshop, from the program.
Mm-hmm.
Couples are coming, they're lit up. And my earliest couples, when I started offering these workshops, they're in my legacy circle now. They've been through the workshop, then the annual Rise in Love, and now they're in the Rising Couples Legacy Circle. And they are literally lit up. They come in, they're laughing, their eyes are sparkling. They didn't come in that way when they first started.
Sure.
That's
And
cool.
so yeah, so I do you know, we set it up, right? That intentionality. I'm setting
Yeah.
it up so that couples come into this, what I would call a sacred space, an intentional space, and they get the medicine they need. And their relationship and their health on all levels just gets better.
Yeah. Excellent.
Well, yeah, let's definitely.
Yeah,
We'd
we'd
love to have you
back.
back, and maybe we
Absolutely.
can. Well, we'd be remiss. It's January 20th. Since we've been talking, we have a new president, and
Yeah.
which is good, I think. And but with RFK coming in and the hammer he's going to put down on the FDA and feeding our kids these poisons and the school lunch program and Domino's $10 billion pizza contract, stuff like that's going to go away. So hopefully we can have you back and talked about what has improved since today. And the
Mhm.
proof will be in the pudding, I guess, of what's going on
Mhm.
there. So, but
Indeed.
awesome, Diana. It's been really great talking
For
to you.
sure.
You guys too. Thanks so much for having me on, and just tons of love to all your listeners. Hope everyone has a really wonderful, wonderful day.
Awesome. Thank you
Awesome.
so
Same to
much.
you. Take care.
Bye bye.
So if you just listen to this podcast and you appreciate the content and the work that we're doing, we would love your support. Look in the comment section of this episode. Subscribe, rate us, comment. This gets our podcast in front of other listeners. And if you noticed, we don't have advertisers. For the cost of a cup of coffee, you can help keep it this way. Become a supporter right now. We'd appreciate it. I'm Jim the Yogi.
I'm Rick the BeachMan.